You know Loki. Tom Hiddleston, horned helmet, sarcastic smile. The god of mischief who falls off a rainbow bridge, fakes his death 3 times, and ends up ruling Asgard in disguise. Charming, entertaining, completely safe. Now let me tell you what the actual Norse myths say happened to Loki. There is a god chained beneath the earth right now, chained with the intestines of his own son. A serpent suspended above him, dripping venom onto his face, endlessly, drop by drop, for what the Norse called until the end of all things. He has been there for a very long time. And the earthquakes you feel? Those are him. Before we talk about what happened to Loki, we need to understand who he actually was, because the Marvel version and even the popular mythology version both flatten him into something much simpler than the original texts described. Loki was not evil. That is the first thing to understand. The Norse did not have a simple good versus evil framework the way later religions do. The gods were complicated, morally ambiguous, capable of great things and terrible things, and Loki was the most complicated of all. He was a Jotun, a giant by blood, but an honorary Aesir god by oath. He and Odin had sworn blood brotherhood, which in the Norse world was the most sacred bond that could exist between two beings. Whatever Loki was, he was also Odin's brother. That mattered enormously, until it didn't. For most of Norse mythology, Loki is essential. He is the problem solver. When Thor's hammer is stolen, it is Loki who figures out how to get it back by dressing Thor in a wedding gown and posing as his bride at a giant's feast. When the gods need the Great Wall of Asgard built, it is Loki who negotiates the contract. When things go catastrophically wrong, it is almost always Loki who first caused the problem and then Loki who fixes it. He is the friction in the machine that somehow keeps the machine running. He is also the father or mother, in one case, of the most terrifying beings in Norse mythology. With the giantess Angerboa, Loki had 3 children. The first was Fenrir the Great Wolf, bound with a magical ribbon, destined to swallow Odin at Ragnarok. The second was Jormungandr the Midgard serpent, so vast it encircles the entire world and bites its own tail. The third was Hel, ruler of the realm of the dead, half her body alive and half her body a corpse, who governs the 9 worlds of the dead with cold, absolute fairness. 3 children, 3 endings of the world. And Odin knew it. The gods knew it. They took the children from Loki and tried to contain them. It didn't work. It never works. The event that broke everything was the death of Balder. Balder was the most beloved of all the Aesir gods. He was Odin's son, radiant and good, and the Norse texts describe him with the kind of reverence usually reserved for sacred things. He was beautiful, he was kind, he glowed. Everyone loved him, everyone. Then Balder began to have nightmares, dark, specific, prophetic dreams of his own death. In Norse mythology, prophetic dreams were not to be ignored. They were messages from the structure of fate itself, from the Norns who wove the destinies of gods and men alike. The gods, in the meantime, had turned Balder's invulnerability into a game. They would throw things at him, rocks, spears, swords, and watch everything bounce off harmlessly. Balder would laugh, they would laugh. It had become a festival. Frigg, Balder's mother, decided to do something about it. She traveled the entire world, every plant, every animal, every stone, every disease, every poison, and extracted an oath from each one. An oath not to harm Balder. They all agreed. Why wouldn't they? Everyone loved Balder. She missed one thing. Mistletoe, a small young plant. Frigg thought it too young and harmless to bother with. Loki found out about the mistletoe. How exactly is not specified in the texts, but Loki had ways of knowing things he shouldn't. He disguised himself as an old woman and got the information out of Frigg herself, who trusted the disguised figure enough to mention the one exception. The gods panicked. Odin rode his 8-legged horse Sleipnir down to Hel itself to consult a dead seeress, asking what the dreams meant. She told him Balder would die. It was certain. Among the gods watching was her Balder's blind twin brother, blind, unable to participate, standing apart from the celebration. Loki approached him, gave him a dart made of mistletoe, guided his hand. Balder fell. The most beloved god in all the 9 worlds fell dead in an instant, and every living thing wept. The Prose Edda says that all the gods and all the creatures of the 9 worlds cried for Balder except one. In a cave, disguised as a giantess named Thak, Loki sat dry-eyed. When the god's messenger came to ask her to weep so Balder could be released from Hel, Thak refused. Let hell keep what she has, she said. The gods knew, they always knew, when things went wrong, whose fingerprints were on them. After Baldur's death, Loki did something that still defies easy explanation, even after centuries of scholars studying the texts. He came to the gods' feast. Uninvited, after everything, after Baldur, after refusing to weep, after engineering the death of the most beloved being in existence. He walked into Aegir's hall, the sea god's feast, where all the Aesir were gathered, and he demanded a seat. The gods refused. He was expelled. He left. Then he came back. And when he came back, he began to speak. What follows in the Eddic poem called Lakasena, the Flighting of Loki, a verbal duel, is one of the most remarkable passages in Norse mythology. Loki systematically accuses every god in the hall of their worst acts, their cowardice, their infidelities, their failures, their shames. He is brutal, he is specific, he is, and this is the unsettling part, largely correct. When Odin accuses him of wrongdoing, Loki reminds him of the times Odin himself practiced seer magic considered unmanly, and of the times Odin gave victory to cowards instead of warriors. When Thor eventually arrives and threatens him into silence, Loki leaves. But before he goes, he says one final thing. He tells them he will be at Ragnarok. He will be there when the world ends. He will steer the ship of the dead against them. He says it like a promise. The gods pursued him. Loki fled. He was, if nothing else, extraordinarily good at running. He hid in a mountain, in a house he built with 4 doors so he could see danger from every direction. He would spend his days in the river below the house, transformed into a salmon, hiding in the waterfall called Franangreifers. One evening, sitting by his fire, he was thinking about what net the gods might use to catch a salmon. And as he thought about it, because Loki's mind worked this way, always several steps ahead, always modeling his opponents, he began to absent-mindedly weave. He was inventing the fishing net. In that moment, he saw the gods approaching. He threw the net into the fire and jumped into the river. Kavasar, the wisest of the gods, found the burned remnants in the ashes, reconstructed the pattern, understood what it was. The gods made their own net, a perfect net. They dragged the waterfall. Loki leaped. He almost made it. He was mid-air, salmon body arcing over the edge of the net, and Thor caught him by the tail. The Norse texts note, as a small aside, that this is why salmon are thinner at the tail end. Even in catastrophe, the myths found room for a small dark joke. They took him to a cave. They took his son Narfi and his son. They transformed into a wolf. The wolf tore Narfi apart. Then they used Narfi's intestines as rope. They placed Loki on 3 flat stones, one under his shoulders, one under his hips, one under his knees. They bound him with his own son's entrails, and the entrails became iron. That is what the texts say. The bonds became iron, unbreakable, permanent. Above him, they placed a serpent, fixed to the cave ceiling, positioned so that its venom dripped directly onto Loki's face. Continuously, drop after drop after drop. He has one companion. His wife, Seijen, stands over him. She holds a bowl above his face, catching the venom before it can land. She does this endlessly, without rest, without complaint, because this is what she chose to stay. But the bowl fills, eventually the bowl always fills. And Seijen must turn away to empty it. In those moments, in the small gap between the bowl filling and Seijen returning, the venom lands. And Loki screams. The Norse said these were earthquakes. When the earth shakes, that is Loki in his chains. When the ground moves beneath your feet, that is a god in agony beneath the world. The Norse sources say very little about Seijen. She appears briefly, she holds the bowl, and she is described only as faithful. That single word, faithful, is doing an enormous amount of work. Think about what it means to stand in a cave with a bowl. Not for a day, not for a year, not for a century. Until Ragnarok, until the end of the world. An unknowable, incomprehensible span of time, in a cave beneath the earth, performing the same action over and over, because each time you leave, even for a moment, he suffers. She knows what he did. She was there. She lost her son, her child was used as the instrument of her husband's imprisonment, and she stayed. Why? The texts do not say. The Norse did not feel the need to explain Seijen. She simply is. She is there. She holds the bowl. Some scholars read her as tragic, a woman destroyed by loyalty to a man who brought ruin on everything he touched. Others read her differently, as the one figure in all of Norse mythology who made a choice that no one forced her to make, for reasons that were entirely her own, that she has never explained and will never explain. There is a word the Norse used for this kind of loyalty: true, faithful, not as a weakness but as a form of absolute, unbreakable power. Seigen, who has no domain, no great myth, no famous deeds. Seigen, who simply stands in the dark with a bowl, may be the most quietly powerful figure in all of Norse mythology. The Norse knew exactly how this story ends. They wrote it down. At Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, the final battle at the end of all things, the bonds will break. The earth will shake one final time, not from Loki's screaming but from Loki rising. He will captain Naglfar, the ship made from the fingernails and toenails of the dead, and sail it against the gods with an army of giants. He will face Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, his ancient enemy, and they will kill each other. The Norse did not find this tragic, they found it inevitable. The word they used was word fate, the woven destiny of all things. Loki was always going to end up in that cave. The cave was always going to open. Ragnarok was always going to come. The point was never to avoid it. The point was how you faced it. Loki, in chains, did not beg, did not repent, did not ask for mercy. He lay in the dark and he waited. And the world went on above him. Seasons changed, civilizations rose and fell. The people who had once known his name forgot it, then remembered it wrong, then turned him into a comic book character with a funny helmet. And beneath it all, in the dark, with Seigen's bowl and the endless drip of venom and the weight of the world above him, he is still there, waiting. The next time the ground moves beneath your feet, the next earthquake, the next tremor, the small shudder of the earth that lasts just a second and then is gone. That is the bowl overflowing. That is Seigen turning away. That is a god, still alive, still bound, still paying the price for the death of the most beloved being in all the 9 worlds. And he is not finished yet.